In this video, we'll be going into Canva and selecting our image, downloading it, and working with it in Photoshop. So let's dive right in. So let's go back to, you remember our man dancing search, and let's pick an image that we want. This is a good image. Now understand that Canva is providing us with these images to use within their web app. So to get the image out, let's first of all just extend this. Let's make it bigger because we only need the man. So let's make this bigger. But then don't forget that we have a blank background. You can fill the entire background if the image you want doesn't need all that extra space. But let's just keep it this way in case you're working with an image that wouldn't take up all the space. So let's pull this down a little bit. And then we have a good frame. So let's go into download. We simply move to share, click on the download, and here, so your canvas will originally show you 0.1, which is the exact size of your document. To get higher quality, we can increase this to 2. So you can either pull this out or come in here to change the number. So let's do 2. So twice the size, and ensure that you're selecting transparent background so that this white part will be removed from the download. So you see that in a second, and simply click on download. Now the image is going to be saved with the name of your document. If you come in here to file, you can see the name of your document here. We can click into edit. So let's say photos. And now if you download, the name of that file will be photos. But let's move further. So here again, let me just go and change. So now let's dive into Photoshop and do some editing with our man dancing image. So now we're in Photoshop. Let's create a file and bring in our image that we'll be working with. So you remember we talked about the creating new documents and adding the document's name, changing the size. So let's just name this man dancing and use a square. So 1080 by 1080 and click on create. And now we have our canvas. So let's bring in our image. We have this option here for people using the newer version. So import image. This will take you into your file manager. The file, now I already renamed the file to man dancing. So remember the name that you have as your document's name on Canva is the name that the image or whatever you're downloading will take on. So man dancing, that's our image, and we can simply place that. Now let me turn off our background. Remember what I said, that the white part will be removed if we make it transparent. So you can see that here now. So let's bring our image to the center. Bring our background back on. Zoom in a little bit so that we can properly see our image. So the first thing we want to do now is remove the background of our image because we need our man dancing alone. So remember we talked about a few techniques for that in Introduction to Photoshop. So I'll be using the select subject. Let's give it a few seconds to analyze our image. And you can see here that it is missing some part of our image. So we can zoom in. You can see the area of this gene that is cut out. So let's go in and find our, let's use our quick selection. Let's click on the plus because we're trying to add to the selection. You can reduce the size of your selection because what we're trying to pick is very little, still big. So let's just go in again and reduce the size. So we're at 8 and this should be good. All right, and now we're adding that extra part. So now I'm just clicking and you can see now that we have our selection all done. You can also see here that it didn't add this portion. So with our plus selected, remember, if you want to remove areas, you click on the minus, but we're adding. So our plus can simply come in here and select over that. And now we have our selection. Let's zoom out and make sure that we do. Yes, we do. So now that we've selected that, let's come in here and click on layer mask. And you can see that the background has disappeared. So now we have our man. Now the first thing I'm going to be showing you here is bringing back portions of your image or removing more portions using your brush tool. Remember we talked about the brush tool. Now that we have a mask, right? And this is the difference between just cutting out the background and creating a layer mask. So let's go in and see what that looks like. So let's select this. Make sure that we have our mask selected. You can see we can select our image or select our mask. So make sure that your mask is selected. And let's find our brush tool. We have that over here and click on our brush tool. Now, something that you need to understand, you can see the foreground here is black. That's the one on top, and the background is white. If you want to brush back in portions of your image, you use the white. So to switch that, you use this icon here. If I click on this, you can see that the white has become the foreground. And if I click on it again, the black returns. So when we have our black, we're erasing. And when we have our white, we're adding. So let's quickly look at our black. Let's zoom in. This is the size of our brush. Again, you can go into this section, increase the size or reduce the size. So now look at that. Let's zoom in. And remember we have our black selected as the foreground. So if I start to brush, you can see that I'm cleaning those areas of my image. And this is because of the brush that we have selected. So let's go back and select a hard round brush. You can see that we're cleaning portions of our image. You can see that here. Let's take that back and portions of our image. And now if we want to replace that area, we can go back and switch back to white. Now we're back to white as our foreground. And if we draw this back, you can see that now we're even drawing more parts of that image, right? Because we have a mask selected, we can do this. Let's undo. And so for example, let's say you've selected an image and there's a portion that is still there that you want to remove. For example, look at the back of his neck. You can see that right there, we still have some portions of the background. So if we wanted to clean that, we can use this tool to remove that area. And what would we need to do? Let's zoom in and make sure that we have that area inside. Now you can see the pixels, the small boxes with color information. Make sure that we have our black selected, but then let's also take this to, let's make this very small because the portion we're trying to clean is also very tiny. So you can see here, we're taking out those pixels. You can see here, we're taking out those pixels. I have to do it carefully. Make sure that you're taking out the exact pixels that you need. We're cleaning that out. And now that section has been cleaned. So now it's the first thing that we've learned, which is using our layer mask and using the brush tool to bring back portions or removing portions. You can also draw remember the brush that we had on initially? You can come into your brush. Let's click on our brush and make sure that we go here and let's select this, for example. Let's make this a bit smaller. Or we could use the soft round brush. You can take this a bit lower and zoom in a bit. So make sure this is black. And here's the first thing we'll do. You can see that soft blend into the white. Let's undo that. We can still go further and reduce the opacity of that brush. And then we have something that looks like this. So we can create a blend. We can create a blend. We can create a blend between our image and the background. You can see that. So now it looks like he's looking into the light, right? There's so many things you can do with this. You can come in here, change your brush, pick something different. Now our opacity is back to 100. So take note of all of that. You can move this back, make it smaller. And zoom in, and as we draw into our image, you can see the dots from that brush. You can see the dots. So it is cleaning those areas of the image using the brush. So you can use this to create cool effects depending on the brush you're using. You can see that. And again, you can reduce the opacity if you please. Move this down and you can do the same thing. So now it's going to clean, but the opacity is going to be lower. You see that? You see that? You see that? Awesome. So let's undo this. We don't have to go one step by one step. You can see here this the history icon. If you don't have that open, you can come in here and make sure that history is selected. So here are your panels over here. We can extend this. And now you can see every move that we've taken here. You can go all the way to the beginning. Before we removed our background, you can go further. You can see outer layer mask. Let's do something over here. Okay, that was the first thing we removed. And now we're back here. So let's look at a few more things we can do. For this one, let's remove our layer mask. We can either go back here in history, or if you come in here and click on the mask, you can delete the mask. So we have our image again. Let's look at how to bring in a text and embed your image into your text. We call that clip masking. So let's bring in a text here. This will be our example. Let's increase the size so we have something that's big enough. So let's try 50. And select our font here. So make sure that it's black so that it is bold, and we can say man dancing. Now we currently have our text as black, but what we're trying to do is embed this image into that text. So let's bring our text here. Let's make it bigger so that we can see it a lot more clearly. Let's just try 70 here. Okay, that's really big. Let's do 30. Okay, so this works. Let's move this all the way to the center. We can drag this, or let me take this back. We can use our alignment tools. So like I said in introduction to Photoshop, as we require things, I'll be showing you as we go, so you're not overloaded with information all at once. As the use case comes, we apply it, so pay attention to that. So you can see the alignment panel here. If I click into this, you can see that all of it is turned off. So essentially, we're unable to use them. But if we click into this options panel, you can see that the reason why is because our alignment is to selection. We have two options. We have selection and we have canvas. So selection means that if you select two different elements, you see that these are turned back on. So it is aligning based on those two elements. So if I click on the center now, it makes sure that those two elements are aligned center. Now, that's not what we want. We want to align our text to the page. So I select our text, we go in here and change the alignment to canvas instead of selection. And now we have it back on. And if we click on the center, it aligns our text to the center of the canvas. So now we have our text. We need our image to be big enough so that it covers all the areas. Let's extend this further and make sure that it covers. That's perfect, and we can select that. So now, to embed your image into the text, we need to make sure that your image is on top of the text. So we can move that in the layers panel. Let's move the image to the top of the text. And now our text is hiding behind our image. So what can we do? If we right click on man dancing, right click here, we simply need to search for create clipping mask. And if I click on that, look at what happens. It clips your image into the text, right? So now it's working with the layers. So if you had a shape and you want to clip your image into a shape, we can also do that. Let me show you that quickly. You can right click on the image to release clip masking, to release clipping mask, and turn this one off so that we have just our image. Now let's draw a circle. So let's say we're trying to create a profile icon for, so let's say we're trying to create a profile image for a design. Can come in here. Well, the color isn't necessary. So we can come here and same thing applies. Let's move this here. So we have it covering the face. And we move our man dancing to the top of our circle. We right click on the image. We move to create clipping mask and select that. And yet again, we have our image embedded into that circle. So it works with the layers. It embeds the layer on top to the one beneath it. So this is something else we can do. And again, we can right click to release the clipping mask and turn this off. Remember, we talked about our adjustments. So if you can't find your adjustment panel here, remember you go to window and click on adjustments. So that pops back open. And now we have all these options. So let's say we want to make our image black and white. Let's find our hue and saturation. And now we have that selected. If this doesn't pop open, we can also just double click here and you see the options. And we can reduce our saturation. So we want an image that is black and white. We can reduce or increase the lightness of the image. So we can reduce that. And let's go back to adjustments. You can see it here. We have properties, we have adjustments, we have our libraries, and we can also bring in more windows here. So adjust, and we have our brightness and contrast, our levels. Let's go into brightness and contrast, and let's adjust the brightness a little bit. You can see the image, and let's also increase this a little bit. So now we have our black and white sets, but you can see here that we have our effects in the layer panel. So if you don't want to see an effect, you can go in, click on the eye icon and turn it off, turn it off. Everything that you add into your image from this section, if you add a circle, if you add a shape, you add text, you add an adjustment, you add whatever it is you add, you see them added as layers, and you can come in here, turn them on, click on the eye icon, turn them on, or turn them off if you want to go back to what you had before. So we can bring in new adjustments, make sure that you have your layer selected. And let's say we want to adjust it instead of what we had before. Let's go back to hue and saturation, and let's increase the saturation this time. We can increase the saturation. You can see our image popping out the colors. And again, we have our hue and saturation down here. So we can go in, turn it off, or turn it back on. Another thing that I'd like to show you are the blending modes. And essentially what happens with blending modes are, if you have a layer underneath and you have another layer on top of it, and you reduce the opacity of the layer on top of it, you begin to see the image beneath it, right? And that's what you would do typically if you want two layers to interact. But our blending modes help with that. You don't have to reduce the opacity. It blends it based on different categories that we have. And I'll be showing you these different categories. So let's use our text for this example. Let's turn this off and bring our text over the man dancing. So now let's look at our blending modes. I've taken out the hue and saturation and the other effects that we added in our layer panel. So we have our text on top of our man dancing, and I'll be using this text to show you the different categories. Now you can see the blending modes inside here where we have our normal. The default state of every layer is normal, and that essentially does nothing. So if we wanted to do anything here between man dancing and the actual image, we would come into our opacity, reduce our opacity, and you can see now that there is a blend between both images, but we don't want to do that. Or we can also go into our fill and do the same thing, but we have the option to use these modes. You can see we have the normal categories, we have the second category here, the darkens. We have the lighten categories. We have our overlay and a different category here. We have our difference and we have our component category here. Now, you can go around and play with all of these, but I'll show you a few effects that we can add. So first of all, let me change the color from black because some of our blend modes will subtract black. So let's go in and change the color here. And now let's go in here to our modes. Now these wouldn't do so much. To essentially get anything here, we would reduce the opacity. So let's go to dissolve and see what we have. If I reduce the opacity of the text, you see that it dissolves into dots. Now the lower the opacity, the farther the dots, the higher the opacity, the closer the dots. And so when we get to 100, we have our full image back. So you'll mostly rarely use that, but I'll just scroll through so that you see some effects. You can see the blend in with the darken area. So we have darken, multiply, color burn, and you can see here what's happening with our image, between our image and the text. You can see that blend. Our linear burn are darker. We have our lighting, our screen, our color burn, linear. And so it essentially works with both images, the colors within those images. So now remember, if we zoom in Photoshop, we begin to see pixels. So it works with each individual pixel, the one beneath and the one on top, and creates a blend between the colors based on these categories. So I don't want to go too much in depth with this, but you can come in and play around. So let's try something really cool here. Let's select our color burn and create a layer mask for our text and grab our brush. Remember what we did initially. Let's grab our brush. Let's make sure that it is black at the foreground, and let's go to our hard brush. Let's increase our opacity so that it actually removes whatever we clean, and let's increase the size until we need to reduce it again. And now we can begin to clean our text. You can see here, clean our text. Well, let's clean all of these. Let's clean this, clean our text. And you can see here that we can begin to create cool effects. So let's go in and reduce the size of this so that we can go in further now and begin to just go in, go in, and begin to remove this section. Now, of course, you take a little more time and make sure that all the areas are neater and you're working with it. And well, we can also clean this area so that we have text on the body of the man, right? And what are we trying to illustrate? This man has painted his chest. We actually just got an image, a raw image, and we're creating this effect using both our blend modes and our layer mask. So now we clean that area, clean this area as well. If your brush is too big, you can go further and reduce the size and edit that. Let's go in and clean as much as we need to. Screen, and let's also take these out. So that now you have something that looks like, oops, we have this one hiding here. Now you have something that looks like this. Looks like the man has painted the letter A and N onto his chest. So now we'll need to do more details. If we're actually creating this for something, we'll go in and make sure that we're cleaning this so that it's proper. We're cleaning all of these to make sure that it doesn't spill onto the shirt. Reduce the size, make sure that we're getting it. And now we have something that looks like this. So you can have this. Let's imagine that we bring in our other text, and let's also type man dancing. Let's select this. And let's try to align that to what we have here. So our dancing, let's just use this to align it. Okay, so we have that alignment. We can make this black or a bit more gray and create another layer mask. Make it bigger. Come in here to our brush, make sure that our black is selected. And what do we want to do now? We want to clean the areas on the body to create that subtle blend between our text at the back. So now remember what we cleaned before was the text off his shirt. Now we're cleaning the text off his body. Again, when you're working with this, you make it neater, but you get what we're doing. You can also do this. Let's clean this so that it's actually okay. Let's take it back a bit more steps. We want all the areas on the cloth out. So let's clean that gradually. You take more time and you're working. Let's take this off. Let's take all of this off actually, and then we'll bring them back with a different foreground. Remember that black removes and white brings things back. So we can do this, clean this. So we're creating this illusion that this text is behind the man while we have some of the text on his body. So let's remove this. Okay, so now let's switch our foreground. And remember, we can start bringing things back if we want. So look here, we can bring this back. If we deleted too much, you can bring this back. Same thing with the D. Let's move over here. We can bring this back. Let's say we need the area here. Can also bring that back. We need the area up top here as well. We can bring that back. And now we have something that looks like this. So you see that you can create very cool effects in Photoshop using these tools, right? The possibilities are endless. If you can think about it, you can figure out how to work around it. You can create something really amazing. In this video, we've looked at image manipulation in Photoshop. We've looked at some adjustments. We've looked at blend modes. We've looked at selecting our subject and removing the background. We've looked at some basic editing. We've looked at creating clipping masks. So you have an image or you have a shape or you have something and you want to clip that into another layer beneath it. We've talked about how to do that, how to release the mask, and how to work around images and blend them with other layers in Photoshop. In the next video, we'll be sourcing for icons and illustrations. Remember that we're talking about imagery as a whole, illustrations, and other visual elements. So we'll be looking at where to find some of these icons, where to find some illustrations, and how to work around them again in Photoshop using some of these same tools that we've discussed. See you in the next video.